you're good. Take your time.
It's all right. I'm a bit rubbish at these. Is that working?
Yes, I can
No.
hear you just fine. Yep. Can you hear me okay?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I
Okay,
can
good.
see. Right. I'm
I
a
know.
bit.
I still try to get the use of these, and it's always like either the camera's wonky or the audio's wonky. It's
Yeah,
something else.
that's
So
not too bad. I'm a bit low down on there, aren't I? Oh well. Let's lean that over. Hang on. Oh, that'll do. That's all right, isn't it?
yeah, it's
Yeah.
solid. Yeah.
Cool.
You doing good?
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you for being on my podcast. I appreciate it.
That's all right.
How was you just got back from Australia, was it?
Yeah. Well, Australia, then New Zealand.
How did that go?
We did 2 weeks in Australia, then we flew over to New Zealand, and
Yeah.
then it was 30 hours trip home. I don't think I've ever had it that long.
Oh my
And
goodness.
I got back Monday
Yeah.
and I'm still a bit jet lagged. I still wake up at 3 in the morning
I
and
believe
like,
it. Oh,
yeah, but it's getting, yeah, it just takes time.
I get it. I
It
understand.
was good though. It was brilliant. Yeah.
Awesome. I'm glad you guys had a great time there, man. Is it you consistent? Like you go to Australia and New Zealand, like that's a good primary place to go when you're on tour?
Well, we first time in Australia, so I'd
Really?
never, yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
So, it was, yeah, it's a long way, isn't it? From everybody, from you as well. It's about the same for you as it would be for
I think
me.
so. Yeah, with the because I live in the States, so it's I would say it'd be probably about pretty much the same. When was the last time you guys came to the States?
It's been years. The last time actually, it was technically the States. We played in Hawaii in 2017,
Wow.
but doing a tour was I think 2008.
Oh
So,
wow.
but we were due to come back this year, and it kind of got messed up with
Yeah.
a really bad booking agent. And it looks like we're going to come back better next year.
Okay,
So yeah,
man.
yeah,
Hopefully.
we're going to do the Cold Waves Festival.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
I think, are you in Chicago?
I'm closer to Chicago, yeah. So
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's there, isn't it? And but I think we're doing it this in 2025, so it'll
looking
be good
forward.
to come back.
Yeah, absolutely. Tell me about the Black Maria, your guys' latest album. Tell me about that. Tell me about the making of it. Tell me everything. It's an incredible, incredible album.
All right. Cool. It's it kind of took 8 years to make that, but well, I didn't. It was on and off.
Gotcha. It was an
Uh,
awesome project.
it was a long time since the one before that was the First World War poetry album we did in 2015. And then there was a lot of things going on. Actually, I did do a side project called Ngram, which was a, like electronic thing. That came out in 2018, I think. Yeah, 18. So I did that. Did a lot of touring actually, and and then I got divorced, so I had all that sort of crap going on, and that slowed it down. And then we had COVID, didn't we? And we were supposed to do like we were supposed to do a South American, the full. I've been to Brazil and Mexico, but we were going to do a full South American tour in 2020.
Yeah.
And I was like getting the album, I was going to get that hopefully to come out, even if it's just after. And then all that happened, and it's the same for everyone. It's just uh, it didn't really. I wasn't inspired. I'll put it like
I
that.
think a lot of word. Oh man,
Yeah.
I believe it.
So hang on, I'm just adjusting my volume.
No, you're
Right, yeah, I wasn't inspired, so that put it off. Although, because I actually do here in where I live, I've got my studio, and I do a lot of mastering for people, and I do production as well, but and obviously my own stuff. But actually, because no one could tour, everyone was, well, if they could, they were recording. So I
Mhm.
actually more work than ever during that COVID time. So I was busy in that way. So that was kind of good, but much rather have been on tour and doing stuff and not just stuck on my own in a studio.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So there was all that. So that slowed it down. And then we were going to have the vinyl out on a a label called Sleepers Records, and then they messed me about for about a year. So that didn't happen. So I just did it myself in the end. I'd already planned to do I put it out in on CD, cassette, even shorter than that, but vinyl, streaming, everything. So I've done it, yeah, and it's and then I've spent months this year just promoting it and then getting out again to play and yeah, Scott, I'm pleased. It's gone well. So I should get on with another one and not take so long.
Okay. And the creative process, man, it comes in waves. It's like either you're feeling it or you're not, depending. And even
Yeah,
there's so many stuff. Like, I mean, me as a musician, I'd, be working on something and I'm like, okay, I'm kind of running out of steam with this, and then I'll kind of put it in a folder and kind of wait on it. And then
yeah,
once I start feeling the waves again, it's like, okay, I'll come back and try and work on something like that. Do you ever go through that kind of process?
do that. Yeah, I mean, actually, there was a lot to do with the lyrics, and quite sadly, my wife that we split up, as I mentioned. We stayed friends, but she had a lot of issues, and she actually died. She sadly died in 2022,
Mhm.
and actually, it was weird. I got all the final lyrics for the album because there was things about her that
Mhm.
I didn't know what to write, and I can't just throw out lyrics. They have to mean
Yeah,
something.
of course, absolutely.
And then she died, and I had the lyrics written within a few weeks, and that was it. And that actually was when it was ready to release. So it was there's a lot of things going on with that album.
Yeah.
But did a couple of singles as well, like The Great Derailer and
Mhm.
The Alibi. I did a couple and made during lockdown. Actually, I got into making videos, which I'd meant to do for a long time, but I'd never actually done. So I did a bit of that as well. But God, that takes forever.
Yeah, I saw a lot of the promotion work that you did, and it's outstanding. The lighting and the editing and stuff like that. I was like, it's done very well. So
Yeah. Oh, thanks. Yeah. Well, I started off as an art student, like an art student dropout that just preferred to do music.
yeah.
I was too influenced by punk rock, really.
Yep.
And I started off, so I've always done, I'd always done paintings and sculptures, but not for long time. But I'd always wanted to get back into it. And I thought, actually, this is a kind of getting into a visual thing, but connected to the music, obviously. So. I want to do more, but God, I just there's not enough hours in my day. But I will. I'll do some more.
Gotta space it out. I noticed things are like when I first started doing like, getting out of high school and trying to find my path, I tried to do like video editing and stuff like that. Now it's gotten easier to edit things because back then it was like you had to convert, either from, analog to digital, and it would just
Yeah, I
became
bet. Yeah,
button and slice and film and all that. It was just like, so now everything's gotten a hell of a lot easier to edit. So
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, definitely. But yeah, I will. I'll go back and do some more. But
Mhm.
yeah, so that's a little bit about the album. Yeah.
Awesome.
So
Yeah, fantastic. Growing up, were you like mostly listening to your parents' music? And then at one point, was there like a shift where you started going, okay, enough of that music. Here's my path.
I don't think they like music that much, my parents.
Really?
Although saying that, I did like Simon and Garfunkel, and that's
Okay.
my dad had a best of.
Oh, wow.
And I still like them. And it's like when we were doing early Attrition stuff, which was really experimental and weird, we'd have a little break in we had a little 4-track studio, Porter studio thing, and we'd be doing our early stuff, and then we'd go, right, let's have a break, let's have a listen to Simon and Garfunkel on headphones. And it was great, and it was like a little antidote for all the noise we were doing. And then we go
The
back.
balance.
Yeah.
I love
And
it.
I still like them. Those early tracks, they're just brilliant.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
My dad, but nothing much. We didn't even have a record player at home until I was about 12 or something. Yeah, we just didn't have. There was, not much. A bit on the radio or something. And then, but then I got into Bowie and Roxy Music and Mark Bolan. That's the first things I which I still like to this day. But it wasn't a bad start. Stuff like that, and then but then really punk later on when I was about 18, and that just, when the Sex Pistols record, when I bought that, and all of them, the Clash and everything, that just blew me away, and that's why I did music because of that. It was like a lot of people did. It was really inspiring.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's got me into doing stuff, but then it was like I couldn't play anything. I still can't really, but I just it was stuff like hearing electronic stuff, hearing like Cabaret Voltaire and those early, even like the first. I saw the Human League sporting Susie and the Banshees. That was the first electronic band I ever saw, and I was like, when their early days when they were really good. Uh, and that inspired by how, because I was influenced by punk, but I didn't do any music straight away. I did a fanzine actually.
Mhm. Yep.
Used to write about local bands, and we had the specials here, so we had the two-tone thing, which was pretty good.
Yeah.
Nothing like what I do, but I still like that. I think that
Right.
was great. So yeah, it was that electronic stuff, particularly I'd say particularly Cabaret Voltaire, where I just thought, oh, I can do this more. So started experimenting with like industrial sounds and stuff. So that was the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. I know when you started the fanzine, like I mean, 1979, man, what a year for music. And
Yeah,
it was like the perfect time. What made you want to start your own fanzine?
I think it was, well, there was, I'm still in Coventry now, although I left, I went to
Yeah.
London and Holland, but it was in Coventry that everyone was doing fanzines. It was just a big,
Oh,
in the
okay.
wake of punk, there was a whole thing going on, kind of post-punk, I suppose, by then. But Coventry didn't have one, and I wanted to get involved, and I couldn't. I didn't know anything about doing music really, actually making it. So it was a really good stepping stone for me actually, because I got to meet bands, saw how things work, got contacts, and that really helped when I started Attrition. But yeah, it was great at first. I was doing that. I did that for 2 years, and because of what happened with the specials and the two tone getting really big, there'd be quite a lot of interest, and the media would come to Coventry and they'd come and interview me as well because I was doing that. I was the journalist, and I got on the BBC on a
Yep.
program about how to make a fanzine and stuff like that. So it was good. It was a good time actually.
Yeah.
But then I just wanted to, really, like they'd say, a lot of journalists are frustrated musicians, and I definitely was. But yeah, if it was good, I enjoyed doing that, and it's still remembered here.
Oh,
There's a
yeah.
music museum, Coventry Music Museum, actually run by a friend of mine that was one of my writers on the fanzine,
Mhm.
and he does a lot about the specials and. Yeah, there's a bit of attrition in there, and there's my fanzine, and it's great. Yeah, so
I think I was looking, they have some of the old like I guess some people were able to, kind of copy it and put it online. Like I've read through a few of those. It's great. It's great.
yeah, there's a few
They did a
there,
really good
aren't
job
there?
on it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, there's a lot of books about the old
Yeah.
fanzine explosion as
No.
well. I'm often mentioned in it, so I'll just find,
Yeah.
I'll find it and I'll buy a copy or something. But there's quite a lot. It's in recent last few years actually. So even though that was 45 years ago, I started that. It's like,
That's the beauty of the internet where a lot of things where people, will just get stuff and just put it all like it's just become such a machine for information and stuff. And it's really helped
yeah,
quite a bit. Yeah.
a big library, really, isn't it? Yeah, I
It's a
used to
good or bad
work.
library depending on what your research.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I was used to go in I used to love the libraries here growing up, actually, and then I'd go in and pick up you could get records as well as books. So I'd read about things, and then I remember getting um, it was like Lou Reed had a hit, in the 70s. I think, well, Walk on the Wild Side or something. And then I went, oh, there's a Lou Reed album here. But it wasn't. It was like a collection of Velvet Underground songs. But it was because Lou Reed had a hit.
Right.
And got that at the library, and I really got into the Velvet Underground when I was about 14, 15 or something.
Yeah.
So I loved the libraries because you could, but now the internet is like your library, isn't it, really?
We
But
Yeah, we would my parents anytime instead of like dropping us off anywhere, they go, okay, you can go to the library, when we got a little bit older, we're not going around parks and whatnot, they would drop us off at the library. And it's
Yeah.
funny now that you mentioned the specials because at the time they would have CDs and stuff, and I actually rented like the specials greatest hits.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, that's so funny that you brought that up. That's so great because yeah, it was like Bjork, um, the specials, I think Joy Division, like it was just a number of CDs I
Yeah,
rented out and listened to. It was so amazing.
they were good places. Well, they still are, but I mean, they don't get used as much, I think now. But
No.
now you've got Wikipedia or whatever and Google. But yeah, they're still there. The big one in Coventry was actually used to be a venue, a big venue that in fact, the specials played there, and I saw everybody there. The Clash and Susie and Human League, Iggy Pop. Oh, everybody. It was a big main venue, and then it shut down, and now it's the main library. But I thought, well, that's not bad. It's like could be worse.
Yeah.
So it's still there. Yeah.
What artist like did you see live that went, oh my God, now I want to do this? I want to be on stage now.
Well, it was definitely all the punk bands really,
Okay.
all of those. But then yes, when I saw that went up to I don't know if it was the end of 78, early 79. I went to see Susie and the Banshees, and their first album had just come out, and I really always loved them. And they had the Human League supporting, and so I always think that's the beginning of like the roots of sort of gothic and industrial music, really. Both of those bands, really. And seeing that was amazing. That was one of the best gigs I've been to, actually. But yeah, all of those bands, though, all of that really made me wanted to do it. And then, it was the end of 1980, we did our first gig,
Yep.
and we were bottom of the bill of six bands in Coventry,
Yeah.
not far from where I live, actually, in a little theatre.
Yep.
And we weren't very good, really, but you got to start somewhere.
Still doing it. I mean,
Yeah, yeah,
you're like, well, I don't, I mean, because I'm kind of the same way where I didn't grow up, learning piano or even when I did percussion and drums, I had a teacher, but it was just like, I just want to play rock music. I don't want to read
yeah,
sheet music and do, paradiddles and whatnot. It was just like, can I just play rock music? And so for me, it was just like going in blindly and going, what can I create? Whatever's
yeah,
going on in here, I need to get it out, so
yeah. Yeah, that's right. That's what it. I mean, I started off. I thought I need to learn guitar because that
mhm.
was what I didn't. We didn't have any synths. The first Attrition gigs, we had bass guitar and drums, and it was kind of a bit anarchist, post-punk,
That sounds good.
shouty
Yeah,
kind of
why
thing.
not?
Yeah, but I had a guitar, and then I found I couldn't play it. I mean, it was the cheapest, nastiest guitar anyway, but I couldn't. But that's no excuse, really. I,
Awesome.
and I used to get a tape echo loop and played it with a brick through distortion and tape loops. Then I thought, I think I'll buy a synth.
Yeah,
I think that's more suitable for
I think
what I
that's go
want.
right up my alley, right?
Yeah, yeah. And then actually, it was my brother played the guitar, and he was rubbish, so I had to ask him to leave. And it's probably why we don't talk much now, actually. So I had to ask him to leave after four gigs, and then the brother of Julia, who was singing and still does now, come back. He had a synth. He had a Wasp. And then he got a Korg MS-20. So he had a synth. So that replaced guitar with synth.
Oh, that's cool.
The drummer didn't turn up because he was unreliable. So I bought a little drum machine. So it sort of like changed, it metamorphosized into more electronic. We still had a bass. And that's how it changed. And people would go, it was really hard to get gigs actually.
Mhm.
People would just go, get a guitar or what are you doing? It's weird because it was very that kind of early set. I guess I'd call it industrial, whatever, but that
Yeah,
kind of early experimental stuff that it was, especially in England. But I think because we when we did our first album, we were more accepted in Germany and Holland and
yeah,
things like that.
yeah.
Went over there to play. I mean, it's nowadays it's different. People, it's all over, all over the world. But it was something new then, and we were like, yeah, it was. We didn't even want to play for a while. We just started recording a lot, got
Having
a little
fun with
studio,
it. Yeah.
so then we just went out again.
What was the first synth that you got and the drum machine? What
Well,
brand?
a few. The first one was a little Dr. Rhythm, which was a
Okay.
really simple Boss one, and then I got another one. It's a small company called Clef, and that had extra sounds on it. And then I I'd had a job for a while, and I saved it, and I got a TR-808, which was like
Okay.
the top
Ooh,
one
yeah.
you could get. So that changed things quite a lot. So that was really powerful. But I had a Wasp synth, the British synth,
Yep.
which was really unreliable, and in the end I sold it. But I didn't play it much. It was more Ashley played synths. I'd do vocals and play. I played a bit of bass actually. But I've actually just got the Behringer do a load of replicas of old synth, and
Yeah.
I've just got their Wasp, and it's much better than the one I
Way more
had.
reliable. I
It's
love it.
mad. I just needed to get it for old time's sake, really. But I've used it a little bit.
That's great. So I guess would it be your first album with Death House, and you guys said you're influenced by zombie movies. Do you know which ones they were?
Yeah, Night of the Living Dead,
Yes, that's a good one.
and then Dawn of the Dead, actually. Yeah,
Oh, okay. So the
those
George
are
Romero's,
the
yeah,
ones. Yeah. Well, it wasn't really our first album. I don't.
yeah,
It was a cassette. Well, basically, that was the three of us just improvising on synths. I said, let's do a soundtrack for a zombie film,
yeah.
and we did it on one. We did it over 2 afternoons because we
Oh,
did it
okay.
like I don't know, it was about 20. I think it was the side of a cassette, so it was like 23 minutes or something.
Mm.
So we did, and then we did the other side. But it did come out as a cassette, but I never think of that. But it wasn't like what we were normally doing and playing live and songs. It was just like a bit of a side project, if you like.
A little
Uh,
jam session, yeah,
Technically, it sort of is the first album
yeah.
in '82, but it also isn't. The first one came out in '84.
Yeah.
Doesn't really matter, does it, whether it was or not? But the first album proper, if you like, came out on vinyl in '84, and that was the Attrition of Reason.
Yep.
So yeah, so that but Death House has actually been reissued so many times. People still like it,
I like
and
it. I like it. I can't help
yeah,
it.
no, it's good. We did a live version just after lockdown. We came back,
Okay.
and we'd never done anything live, so we did like a improvised I called it Death House Variations because it was actually you couldn't do it the same because that
Right.
was
No, yeah, you can't replicate it just like a jam or an experimental
yeah.
session. It's
So
hard to
this was
get
like
over the note.
a
Yeah.
reinvented sort of version. We did it like 3 festivals or something. We did, and then that's enough. It's gone to bed now.
It's
But
nice.
yeah,
All right. Um, man, let me get one. Do you have any like because you started going on tour? I think your first one was with Coil. No, that was your first show, and then on tour you toured around with oh my gosh, I just had
Legendary Pink Dots.
yes, Legendary Pink Dots. Do you have
Yeah.
any good stories about being on tour with anybody?
I probably have. That's actually whenever anyone asks me for stories, I go blank because they're so, I could like even I'll think while I'm talking.
No, you're good.
But like even just going to Australia, we had 3 weeks, but every day you're in a different town and it's a different adventure and there's different people, and different clubs and everything. And I haven't even had time to think about the
No,
Australian
you're
thing.
okay.
I keep getting flashbacks. It's like it's just I've like I've taken a massive amount of drugs and they're
Yeah.
flashback, and I still get flashbacks to tours from the '80s.
Yeah.
But yeah, we did in April '84, so just over 40 years ago. We'd only played in England, and we just kept doing gigs around the UK. I think it was just England, yeah. And then I met Ed Caspell from the Dots
Yeah.
at a gig, and we just started writing. And I was saying, how do you? They'd been and toured in Europe once before, I think.
Yeah.
So I just thought, how do you do that? I don't know how to do it. And he said, well, we've got a tour coming up, and we're looking for a band to open. So that's how we got that's how
That's
we did
awesome.
it. And it was great. And then we went back after that and what have you, on our own. But yeah, we did. It was about 3 weeks. We did something like 10 shows in Holland, in the Netherlands, around there, and two in Switzerland.
Wow.
I remember in Switzerland, I got flu, and I was like so bad, and I had to be like lifted out of the car and put on stage and did my. That was in Zurich, I always remember, and then like put back in the car. It's like yeah, literally, because like the show has to go on, doesn't it?
Oh yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
and it did. And I can't remember much
Good.
about the gig, but I think it was probably all right.
Yeah.
So that was good. Yeah, and we just got to know them. And actually, after that, we lived in Coventry up till then, and we just went, "Oh, there's nothing happening in Coventry," because it was all, it was okay if you did punk or metal or, I don't know, yeah, even ska, I suppose, um, but not what we did. There wasn't anything for doing weird electronic stuff. So we just thought, let's go to London. So we just packed up and went and slept on their floor for a bit.
Yes.
And then oh, in fact, then we shared I got a room in a house with Ed actually, and the others got places. So we went down to London, and obviously there was more happening there. But we hadn't got any money, so it was a bit of a
Right.
struggle. So we were there for a couple of years, but it was good. Yeah, it was definitely good to do that.
Do you
Um,
you get a chance to play the legendary Batcave out there yet?
no, I know that was on. They're doing a reunion Batcave, I think, soon. Or that. No, we did. That was on actually. I think it was like 82 to
Was it?
84 or
Okay.
something. It was
All right.
before we moved there. And really, although I loved bands like Bauhaus and um, I didn't know Sisters so much then, but I remember Sex Gang Children, seeing them in Coventry, and I like them. But Bauhaus particularly, I still love. Um, but I didn't. There was very much a difference between Gothic and industrial scenes in those days, and I didn't really think to go to something like that. And also, I never had any money then, and to come down from Coventry to London and then be stuck down in London, it was like I never went. So no, I did miss that. It would have been good actually,
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Awesome.
I'm
Yeah.
sure it's gone, but it's a bit late now.
Right. In the 90s, you signed with Project Records. How was it getting your music to the States, and how rewarding was that for you guys?
It was great actually because we'd been on Third Mind originally in the UK. That's my friend Gary Levermore's label at the time, and that got us started. And then we were on Antler Records in Antler Subway in Belgium, and they were doing like bands like The Clinic and Split Second, and they were pretty good. And we did one album with them. And then we went to Contempo in Italy, and they were doing a lot. So, and then even we did, we got around a bit. We did Hyperion in Germany. So we've done a few independent labels for different albums. But I tried for a few years to get some interest to get over to play in the States and get distributed. In fact, I had a phone call once from one of Wax Tracks. I don't
Oh,
know,
okay. Yeah, yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know if it was Jim Nash. I don't know now because there was a couple of them doing it. And
Mhm.
they called me in like 86 and they were asking to do an album, but we'd just done one on Third Mind.
Yeah.
And I didn't know who Wax Tracks were really at the time because they weren't that known, especially over in the UK. And so I said, well, we haven't really got anything. And I really wish we had.
I think
Now, in
you guys were
retrospect,
on the compilation, wasn't the Animal Liberation?
yeah,
I think it
we got
was.
on that. Yeah, yeah,
That's
that
right.
was
Yeah.
that was fine because it was just one song. But yeah, that was great. That did really well.
Really well.
So that was, yeah, I was always pleased to be part of that. That was 87. Yeah. So yeah, I'd looked anyway. I tried for a few years to get into the States, and I hadn't had much luck. But then I'd known Sam Rosenthal from Project
Mhm.
since '84 because he used to write, he used to review records and have his own fanzine actually, and write for some other magazines, I think. And so he'd reviewed our records. So when I saw that, I wrote to him back in like '84. So So we'd kept in touch. So when he hadn't really got his label going properly till more in the 90s, really.
Mhm.
So then, yeah, he was putting stuff on that, and then he started releasing. He reissued our early vinyl.
Yeah.
I went over in '94 when he was in LA, and we got them all mastered, and then yeah, and then it came out, and then we did the first US tour that
Mhm.
he arranged in '96.
Yep. Yeah, and
Started
that
with
Project Fest
that was
was
the
live
first
at
gig that
Project
we
in
did,
Chicago. That's
yeah.
one of my favorites. Yeah. Yeah, I love that one.
Yeah, that was great. And it was in the big theater. It was a massive theater in Chicago. And then we got a shock because the next gig was in a little crappy little place in
Yeah.
Cleveland.
Isn't that how it goes? It's big and
Yeah, it's
then
the same to this day, actually. But yeah, but it was fun. I liked it. I liked going to all those weird little places, wherever, whatever country they're in, and just I like the adventure.
yeah.
It's great. It's
Was
quite
it surreal
inspiring.
coming to the States for you guys, or was it just same old, same old?
No, it was good. It was brilliant because there was always that kind of. I'd been to the States in just to visit people in
Okay.
1990, in New York, really around there, and then in '94 went over with those tapes to LA. So it wasn't the first trip there, but to actually come and play was quite. It's quite an achievement for a band, to
Oh, it's
come
great.
over.
No, it's perfect. Yeah.
So yeah, and then we did quite a lot over the years. We came back quite a lot. So yeah, it's always brilliant to do stuff. So I'm really just I can't believe I've just played in Tasmania. Never mind Australia. I played in Tasmania. Like I never.
Awesome.
That's like a mythical place, isn't
You
it?
would right. Um, is it 93 that you opened your own studio, The Cage?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, because we had one.
Mm.
In the early days, we had our little four-track
Yeah.
chord studio. And we did it, but it was really for demos. Although we did that Death House, we did our first album on it actually, and then went to a studio, like a professional one, to mix it. But
Right.
yeah, we had that. But then we started going to like professional studios for various albums that we did on different labels. But it was like kind of annoying. I couldn't record anything unless we had the budget to go and
Oh, yeah.
do it, and it costs so much to do an album.
Hmm.
And I was thinking like, well, I've got some equipment. If I can build that up,
Yeah.
um, I could have my own little studio and just work all the time and do it, remixes for the people and production. So that's what I did. I did loads of work over a year or two and bought lots of kit and did up a room and had it like it really basic. And I actually hired the guy from the professional studio in Coventry where we'd recorded to sort of mix it with me. That first one, we did the Hidden Agenda for
Hmm.
that 93. And one of the songs on that's called The Cage, so I used that for the name.
That's
But,
yeah.
yeah.
That's
So
awesome.
yeah, I've always since then. Currently, it's in my attic. I converted the attic here in my house, so it's like two floors up.
Phone Russ.
It's up there.
That's fantastic.
But yeah, and it's been great. It's definitely, I think, just anything. The more you can do yourself, the better, and
Hmm.
uh, you can uh, you can get a lot further than having to wait. I mean, nowadays lots of people record at home, but
Oh
back
yeah.
in the early '90s, it was more unusual.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Did you guys get control of your albums now? Is Two Gods your label or is it
yeah, it's
okay, but
mine. Yeah.
so now you're putting everything out on Bandcamp now and on streaming services. How does that feel about feeling like you're more independent now?
Yeah, I mean some of the releases though I license to other labels, so I'm just well, there's been a few, but I'm just doing. I've just remastered the Dante's Kitchen album, which was 20 years ago. Actually, it was 2004, and that's going to come out on vinyl for the first time. So I'm quite excited about that because that was the CD era, really, the 90s and the early 2000s, wasn't it?
Yep.
So, and that's going out on a label over here called Peripheral Minimal.
Oh, okay.
Uh, but yes, I just license sometimes, and then at the times it'll be a Two Gods thing
Yeah.
release. So yeah, it works out. And I mean the new one I did everything myself because Uh, I mean, there's no point in me going to a small label because I'm better at doing it, you know.
Yeah.
So, um, but yeah, I'm quite happy as well. I'm quite happy like that. Trying
Feel
to
like
do
you're a
it. I
little
do too
more taking
much.
control of things. I mean, I can see
Yeah,
because I
it's
get it. I mean, a lot of stuff that I've done, and I've been in bands and stuff, and it's like knocking heads. And so when it gets to a certain point where it's like I'm in control of myself, my music, my project, my studio time, it's like I don't know, you feel like a weight has been lifted. So
yeah, yeah. It is a lot of work though. I mean, I'm like never getting enough hours. It's just
yeah,
it's crazy, but yeah, it's a lot of work, but it's worth it.
I
You
agree.
know.
Tell me about using incense on stage. I saw a lot of pictures. Tell me about that.
Yeah, it's a lot of the things just happen. I mean, I love incense. Obviously, I wouldn't be doing it,
Right.
but I burn it at home most days. In
Right.
fact, I've had it on. I've had a bunch of sticks burning almost every night on that tour. So
Yeah.
I had a week when I came back. This last week, I've hardly burnt any. I needed a break, but I just do it as a sort of. It's like a ritual. So during the intro, we usually have a like a dark ambient intro track. So I'm not doing anything much. So I'm lighting incense for doing that. That's my and so it's like yeah, it's like a kind of like pseudo religious you know
Mm.
um I don't know what the word is.
Like
It's
a sort of ceremonial sort of
I don't
blessing of
know
the,
if I was
the
thinking of another word, but I can't think it'll come to me. But
yeah.
yeah, it's got something a ritual, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's more that. And it's funny because I sometimes occasionally people venues go, usually small ones, they go, well, you can't burn any, it'll set the fire alarms off. I have actually set a couple off, but it's very rare. But they sometimes say, no, and I really it freaks me out, I just like, God, I don't know if I can do the gig.
Right.
I do it and it's not that bad
Yeah.
actually. But yeah, it's just I just do it and it's yeah, I don't know, it's just a thing. It's
It's
just like
great. No, I think it's
it's breathing,
fantastic.
it's part of it, yeah.
Yeah.
So
When it comes to being in the goth and industrial music scene, do you feel like the fan base has been pretty consistent, or do you feel like it kind of comes in waves?
I think the actual scene goes up and down, doesn't it? I think there's that it was quite big in like the 90s was pretty good. It goes up and down. At the moment, it's gone up a bit again. I think.
Yeah.
I think in the States, particularly, I see there's a lot of festivals and
Yeah, a lot more.
bands. There's a lot going on. Whereas perhaps 10 years ago, it was quiet. Quieter. But yeah, and so I don't know for the band. I mean, it's nice to see that there's young people coming to the gigs. There's obviously a lot of older people. It was interesting it was lovely actually in Australia getting to places that we played and there would be some guys that were like in their 50s or whatever and they'd be going, wow, I never thought I'd see Attrition ever, and it was like we were really pleased, and they came at and they were having a chat, and that was great. That was so good. I like that.
Yeah.
And we have that everywhere. There's like a small amount of people that have been into the band for a long time, and that's great. It's like a cult thing. But then other people come and go, But yeah, there's always new people.
Yeah, absolutely. Your sound has such a distinct and dark atmosphere. What is your creative process like when you're starting on a new piece of music?
It's almost always, it starts off as, I think of it as like a primordial swamp. It's like ambient sounds. It's just, I just mess about with, and sometimes it's rhythmic actually, but it's an atmosphere. I try and create an atmosphere,
Yeah.
and then kind of out of it, I say like it's coming out of this swamp. There's like creatures, but there's like
I
there's
love that. That sounds
rhythms.
great.
I know that I've just made that up really,
No,
but
that's brilliant.
uh,
Brilliant. I
but
love it. I've never heard it in that way. That's
no,
so creative and so great. Thank you.
no, 'cause
Fantastic.
that's a bit ridiculous. But
Oh, it's
it's like
perfect.
it's an ambient thing. It's creating a space and a place, and then coming out of that are like more defined rhythms and some melody or whatever. But particularly, I go for rhythms, bass, and and drum parts, and then when I feel it's working, it won't be arranged into a whole song, but it'll be like the sketch.
Yeah, I get it.
And when it's working, I can get lyrics, but that has to be inspired by the music, actually. I sometimes write down a few words that I use, but usually that's then used in something that inspires it, has a home to put those words in. So then eventually, I mean, in a lot of ways, then the hard work of arranging it and getting it all,
Yeah.
and not like deleting it all because you hate everything you've ever done, kind of.
I just throw it. I always hated that. I used to do that. Like I felt like I was such like a perfectionist and I'm just like,
Yeah,
this isn't good enough. And I'd, chuck it in the waste bin or whatever. And it's just like, no, just hold on. Like I had to force myself to just be like, hold on to it, put it away, put it on the shelf for now, and then come back to it. So
yeah. Well, sometimes you can get into something because you're just playing it and playing it for hours, and it's almost hypnotic. So you've got into a rhythm,
yeah.
and then you hear it the next day or the next week, and you go, "Oh my God!" And you can't get it at all. It was like you know.
Yeah.
So that's weird. And then other times I've got a song where it's just not working, and I keep going back and going, but then I suddenly scrap the bass or something, and then come up with try something else, and it works. It brings it all together. But that's the beauty of the fun, really, of writing music, isn't it? It's not. I don't think it's ever easy, and it shouldn't be.
No, it shouldn't be. If it was too easy, then I mean, now AI, it just having AI is a little bit scary because it's like more people are taking advantage of certain things. Where I think at some point, I think we're gonna grow grow older and more wiser and realize, oh, that was made by AI. You know what I mean? Like certain
Yeah,
music stuff,
sound
where
a
you go,
bit
"Oh, that seems
weird.
so cookie cutter that that's what that is." You know what I mean?
Yeah, I haven't really heard anything that I thought was good.
Yeah.
I get like I was thinking like if I sort of wanted some percussion part on my song and I haven't got a percussion player, then I could find someone, or maybe an AI could play along with my song. I mean,
Right.
maybe that might not be that bad. It's like using drum loops or
Right.
something,
Of
maybe.
course. Yeah. Of course not.
There's I think there's use for it,
Of course.
or
I agree.
or
100.
analyzing things or coming up with different things. So yeah, because computers have always done stuff like that. So there's always been that AI, but on a very simple level, hasn't there? But yeah, I think there's a use for it, but yeah,
I think so.
nobody wants to hear that's their favorite band's actually all AI generated. That's
Right.
a bit,
Um, what
bit
themes and I was gonna say, what themes and ideas do you find yourself like drawn to repeatedly in your music, and how have these evolved over the years?
there's often things to do. I mean, I often look at philosophical things, religious ideas. I'm always fascinated by that. I don't follow any religion, but I'm always interested in them.
Yeah.
And that goes on to philosophical or whatever. But all that, and then just, I mean, when I started, I think there were more direct subjects. So there'd be the like Monkey in a Bin was our first single, which was the what we re-recorded that for the animal liberation thing.
Mhm.
So that was about against like vivisection, and that was much more coming out of my punk roots.
Yes.
And that so I went through some subjects like that. There'd be something anti-racist things, but then after writing loads of songs and albums, I can't keep saying, I'm not saying the
Yeah,
same
you can't
thing.
keep repeating the same stuff.
Yeah, yeah, I'm not going to do it. So I tended to go more for thoughts, and so it's a bit more surreal and more, but how we dream or how we think, we don't really think in that straight, simple way. We have lots of things coming in. So they've gone more like that. So there can be, yeah, it's more surreal, I would say. But there's always subjects like The Great Derail is quite political.
Mhm.
So yeah, so I think, yeah, I look back sometimes and have a think about what I used to do, and I don't, sit there here listening to Attrition albums much, but sometimes I have to when I'm like working out some live things and going, oh, let's go back, or compiling or remastering for a
Yeah.
collection. There are times when I do,
No,
and
I
I
get
go,
it. I get it. It's hard to like even because my kids will be like, "Hey, let's put on one of your albums, Dad," or whatever. I'm just like, can I not
I
listen
know,
to my music and then see you guys listen? Like it just, I don't know.
I know.
It's you know,
Weird, isn't
it's like actors that don't watch their own movies. You know what I mean? So
it? Yeah, yeah. There's a bit. So I don't do that much, but when I have heard it, and sometimes I go, "Wow, this was great," even though I would have criticised the mixing and the.
yes,
But that doesn't matter when it's 30 years old because you can hear all sorts of bands' records, and it doesn't matter about that. It's the whole feeling and what's being said
I agree.
and the sound. It doesn't matter about the technical details. Uh, and so I can listen to the old stuff and really appreciate it. And then I'll go, yeah, I'm still the same, I'm just, I am the same, but I'm moved on in terms of what I'm doing. But I
Yeah.
suppose a bit more sophisticated, really. But
Yeah.
yeah.
I noticed you guys put a lot of like old tapes and stuff like do you still have like a ton of unreleased material that you can put out and
Well, I've probably have, but I don't know if it's releasable. But
everything?
I did sort of about when was it? When I got into Bandcamp, actually, when I
Yeah,
got
yeah,
on it,
yeah.
I think 2012,
Yeah.
and it was like, wow, this is great.
It's
So
amazing.
there was, and then I had a lot of old live recordings, and I have still got loads.
Yeah.
But I was trying to really go, what's the best of that 80s era, what or late 80s, early 80s? No, I was trying to sort of represent because I don't want to put 10 live recordings from a tour out and like
No, I
loads of them sound awful, the recording quality or so I didn't want to do everything, but I did quite a few and people were into it, and they were like downloading them and I thought, well, it's either that or one day those tapes are just going to be thrown away, and
oh yeah.
that's not good. So I even put out our first gig. I'd got a mono cassette recording, like it's a little cassette player in the back of the room. I mean, it's terrible, but
Yeah.
it was our first gig, and then we had two photos. So I used the photos and put that out, and it's rubbish. But like I said, it was our first gig, and I think that's like Picasso's first sketch. I'm not comparing myself to Picasso, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
That was probably rubbish, but it
No,
doesn't. There's an interest on where things have come from, isn't there?
yes. Yeah.
And that was the one band without a synth as well. So
I've always
yeah, I have got more. Um, there might be a few little things that I've got. Maybe when there's a reissue of something, I'll find an extra track or something and I'll include it. But I've got cassettes, I've got DAT tapes, I've got mini discs, I've got old reel to reel tapes, but I haven't got anything to play them on. But I know people that have. But I think most of it I've got. But yeah, I might. I mean, I. It's funny you don't think when you do a band for 40 years, you can end up spending half your time just keeping everything in print and and then I've got old photos I want to digitize or scan and so it's actually can you end up not having time to do anything new because you've got like this,
dealing with the
you're
old stuff.
like
Yeah.
a museum caretaker or something there. But I'm intending to write a book about everything.
Oh
Uh,
man.
I've kept everything, every flyer and poster that I ever could get.
Yeah.
Obviously, mixed a few over the years, but uh, I wrote at the time. I used to have got these scrapbooks, and I wrote down every gig that we did. And then eventually I put that online, but I would never have remembered all the gigs we did otherwise. And so I've got reviews, I've got everything. So I thought I'd like to do a book, but I want to interview other bands and label people that we toured with and we involved with, because it would be really interesting, and it'd be interesting. It just expand it
That
into
would
a
be
kind of
fantastic. Yeah, I love that idea.
quite. Because there's not many books about the sort of era, I don't think, really. So I think that would be good. But again, I'm gonna have to find that. I think that would take me a year.
Yeah.
But I have sort of started. I did go again in lockdown. I went through loads of photos and got a good quality digital scans and saved all of those and backed them up. So I've sort of done a little bit of that. But
That's fantastic. Oh man,
yeah,
I hope that
I
comes to
will do.
pass.
Yeah.
Was it at the time? Because I know cassettes and stuff were kind of being passed around, and it was just funny because I noticed I'm like the live recordings that you guys did and everything like that, it reminded me of like here in the States we have the Grateful Dead, and the fans will come and they'll
Oh
record,
yeah,
and then it becomes like an online thing where people are posting their sort of versions of live shows and stuff like that. And I think it's
yeah.
yeah, fantastic seeing you guys. And I'm like, I'm just diving deep into your guys' old shows and even like the old ones and more recent ones and kind of just bouncing around. I think it's fantastic. And I like hearing the progressions of artists where it's like, okay, this is how this started. And then it kind of formed into this. So I think it's fantastic.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Well, we recorded some in Australia and New Zealand, but I'm waiting. Most of them sounded, they were like live mics in the room and they didn't sound that good. But I'm waiting for a multi-track one from Auckland in New Zealand. And it was a really good venue, the tuning for the last gig of the tour, actually. It was
Wow.
only a week ago. It was Saturday. Well, it's 8 days ago.
Mm.
It seems ages now.
Phrases, right?
But I'm waiting. I'm hoping that'll be quite good. So maybe we could just put out live recording of that. That'd be
Be great.
interesting.
Yeah.
So yeah.
How do you approach collaborations with other artists, and what do you look for in collaborators?
I haven't actually done that many, but I did, like I say, I did the band Engram, which was with my friend John Costello, and that we actually started that in '96.
Oh
We did a
wow.
track which came out on a Silver Records in the States. They did a CD compilation, and we had a track called "What Am I?"
Hmm.
And then we just lost touch with each other, and I suppose it was easier to do in those days. We weren't really all internet then, and we lost touch. He was from this area, so I used to bump into him. And then in about when was it? 2014. It's about 10 years ago.
Hmm.
uh, we were chatting, and I went, "Should we finish the album?" So we spent like 4 years, sort of, because it was on and off,
Yeah.
just doing a load more tracks, and we redid that song, and then we put out an album. Yeah, it was the end of 18. We did just did it ourselves actually, but so yeah, so that was good. But that's someone I've known, for a long time. I, I haven't I haven't done many other like fully fledged projects, but people often ask me to do a vocal actually because they
Oh
want my
really? Okay.
want my growly voice on their album, and I've done loads of those actually. I've even done like a voiceover for a horror film soundtrack, like "It Came from Hell," kind of that kind of thing. I did that. That was years ago. But yeah, I often do things like that, and sometimes a little bit synth. Um, but yeah, I want to get some new Attrition. I've done a couple of ambient tracks for Attrition. I might do a little soundtrack EP. I want to do something with artwork. I want to draw. I want to do the artwork because going back to being a painter thing, I used to do stuff, and I kind of want to do a package where it's a little art package. Thought that might be interesting, something interesting for the next thing. But yeah, just want to start new attrition things and not do too many. I have got a couple of people wanting me to do vocals and stuff. So yeah, there's a couple of projects that are like bubbling under, but I'm like taking ages to get around to doing it. But
I get it.
yeah.
Yeah, you actually answered my next question about like your music has been so cinematic. Do you envision, scenes of stories when you're creating? And have you ever thought about doing like a film score type situation?
Well, yeah, well, yes to both. I often see the music actually. I do have images of it, what it looks like, and like a weird well, landscape, surreal landscapes usually. So I do. So that's yeah, probably because that's what I'd started off doing art, painting and stuff. And so that's I never I do obviously I know a bit about music now, but I never did, and it's just picked up as I go along really. But I've did there was a I've done short pieces for soundtracks, and then I did a soundtrack to a film. It was called Ghost, an American independent film. But we put out the album. I put out the soundtrack as an album called Invocation, and that was 2012.
Wow.
And we've done that live actually in a few places. So, um, in fact, I did one of my favorite gigs was we played the horror soundtrack, The Invocation, in the mountains of Transylvania at a festival in 2018. And I was like, I wish when I think I was about 14 and I read Bram Stoker's Dracula, and I wanted to live in a haunted, house. I probably do now if you see
Yeah,
around my
yeah,
house.
yeah.
But uh, but I was thinking I want to go and tell that 14-year-old me that I'm going to perform a horror soundtrack in the mountains of Transylvania. And
Fantastic.
that was amazing actually. Yeah. So I did that. So I've done a bit. I mean, I did think it might be a good thing to get into, but it's very hard to get into doing film soundtracks. And I'd prefer to be doing my songs and touring actually, if given the choice. But I might do more though. We'll see. Yeah,
Yeah,
probably will.
yeah, absolutely. As someone who's worked in darker and more experimental genres, how do you view the mainstream adaptations of some of these sounds?
In what do you mean by mainstream
Like,
adaptation?
I think a lot of artists have been kind of taking certain elements and stuff like that. Like, I feel like you guys were kind of laying the groundwork where now people are kind of starting to take elements of those sounds and use them in more mainstream style and
Yeah.
music. You know what I mean? Like, how does that make you feel about where it's like, do you feel like you kind of laid groundwork or
I don't think. I mean, we didn't intentionally.
right?
We just did. We heard stuff that we liked, and then we did our own thing, and kind of ended up being our own thing, and it was a bit different to other people's, but influenced. And I think that happens. You get bands that take things and commercialize them, don't you? In a lot of ways. Um, And yeah, I think you're right. I haven't even really thought about it that much, but I think that just naturally happens. And maybe it's good, maybe it comes back the other way, that people follow where something's come from, so they go and look. Yeah, I think that's true. I think some bands are always like that. They're like um, the influence of the people, and that rather than this they get big but by their what they've done passing through to other people rather than themselves. I think that's not a bad thing. I'm all right with that.
Right. You started making music in an era with the analog equipment. How has technology, particular digital tools, influenced your musical and your sound design?
Yeah, it was all analog at first. So we were used to that. I mean, it was good when we started I mean, I use Cubase for
Hmm.
my sort of software to record things on, put everything together. But it was great having had to use the actual individual hardware effects and synths, because then I could understand all the software. And then the software, yeah, the software instruments at first they were terrible, but then they got really good, and I
Yeah.
use them now,
Hmm.
especially sampling type
Hmm.
digital style. Digital software is great because that's all samplers were really. They were just little digital computer things, weren't they? So that I think is great, and I used that, and I did at one point was using almost all software, and in fact, I sold a lot of the hardware since, but now recently everything's got so cheap, and I've bought quite a lot in the last 3 years or something, or
Hmm.
recently. So it's great because I can get inspired, and I can be on some uh, hardware synth and record it. I've got it all synced up to the software, and so it's taken a bit of work, but I'm all right with that sort of stuff. And I quite like it. I like having both, really.
Yeah.
I don't think either's like the answer on its own. I think it's nice to have both and just to have the luxury, really.
Yeah.
So we only used to have a couple of synths when we started, but perhaps you can have too many actually. But certainly with software, you could. I mean, I used to have my 808 had one snare drum, and you used to put it through effects. And then I had a digital Kawai drum machine that had three snare drums. But now you've got in software, you've got 30,000. It doesn't unlimited, isn't it, in software? But it doesn't help. You just keep you go through the sounds till you get bored, and I think you can get overwhelmed sometimes. But it's kind of hard to pretend you haven't got those sounds.
Right. No, I get it.
But
Do you have
yeah,
a
it's
primary?
good. It,
Do you have like a primary go-to when you're starting something where it's like, okay, here's, the certain keyboard that you like to go to when you start?
I have certain, usually for drums, I use software more. I have got little hardware Korg ones, but usually, yeah, I usually use software. And then I like the Omnisphere synth VST. I've used that quite a lot. Uh, and I think because I did stuff, we did it with analog when we only had a few synths. I think I've noticed it with other bands. You sort of get a sound that you like, and there's certain bass sounds I like, and it has its roots in that early days when we only had analog synths and stuff. And so I look for those sounds quite a bit still, and obviously try other things as well and add to that. So yeah, I do. And that can vary. But I think the sound actually outweighs the instrument. But there's a certain type I like, sort of fat sliding bass sounds and
Yeah.
things. And
Oh yeah, yeah.
uh, but also in recent years, I started work because it's so easy now. I bring in cello and violin players and things, and they'll record. Even if they're not here, they'll just do it wherever. So I did really get into classical instruments coming in. So I'll see. I don't know with the new album. I probably will. I can't see why I wouldn't really, because I've done that a while. We don't tend to use them live. Occasionally we'll have a special guest come and join us, but it's a bit hard. We can't take an orchestra around with us.
I know.
It's usually just a three-piece when we play live, but sometimes four. Uh, but yeah, so it's that as well. It's not just the synths. It's and there's my vocals and female vocals, and then sometimes a bit of guitar. Not that much, but I do like a bit of guitar sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a mix of things, but yeah, as I say, mostly samples for drums and stuff. But
Yeah.
kind of layer lots of different sounds and put some analogs over the top.
Right. No, it's sorry, I just lost all my questions for a second. Sorry about
That's
that.
all right.
Um in the with a resurgence of vinyl and analog sound, have you revisited any of I mean, you've obviously the earlier tracks. Have you thought about putting them out on vinyl and cassette and stuff like that? Because I know there's like a resurgence of having physical media.
Yeah, well, we've always had physical. We've always had. I mean, for a long time it was CDs, and
Yeah.
it still is. In fact, I sell more CDs than
Do you?
uh,
Wow.
any format. Although that's possibly the age of people that it's probably people that are my age or a bit younger or a
They
bit
still
older,
go to
whatever,
CDs. Yeah,
that have grown up with that's CD people. So I think there's a bit of that. Vinyl, we do that does well,
Mhm.
um, but it's sometimes it's just the shipping cost to like the States is the same as the cost of the vinyl or more.
Yeah.
So that, and then sometimes like I couldn't take any to Australia. It was too heavy, and I've only got my like case, and it was also they can get a bit damaged. So that was vinyl is great, but it can be annoying. Cassettes, I did a short run for this album because we started off with cassettes in the 80s. I did a short run, I just did 50, but I think I sold 30 pretty quickly. So it covered all the costs. I probably made a little bit of money, so I got some left, but it was good. So I would do more. And then we're looking at some of the albums, like I mentioned, Dante's Kitchen, putting them out on vinyl. I mean, I wouldn't be able to afford to put out like 10, 15 old Attrition albums in one go. So it'll be a gradual thing if I do it, or if other people do it, if other labels get involved, be a bit quicker then. But I mean, obviously the original albums were all vinyl
Mhm.
and got reissued, but that they don't, they're not available now, not as new copies. So I could do them all, I suppose, but that's going to
Mm,
be 20 or 30 or something. So it
right.
is a hell of. But yeah, I mean, yeah, it's nice that people. There was a time, wasn't there, when people just stopped buying music and there was all illegal downloading, and all the people I knew in bands were really. Everyone was depressed, thinking, "What's the point in putting anything out?" And that was only like what 10 or 15 years ago
Yeah,
or
pretty
something.
much. It was a nice gap, and then somehow they made it just everybody started buying music and then going back to doing physical media.
Vinyl and stuff. I think people had got fed up with, I mean, CDs in plastic boxes, and they were really expensive. I think that put people off a bit.
Mhm.
Uh, and then all the illegal downloading, but then that got changed over to Bandcamp and streaming and
Right.
things. I know you don't get much from streaming, but at least you get
No.
some. Uh, it's funny though. I do get a bit. People complain about it all the time, but my son is a rapper, and
Oh, cool.
he did have 12 million streams of his first song, and he got a lot of money.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
Yeah, he got a lot, but I think
For him.
rap is a bit more popular. I think you have to be popular.
Yeah.
But then I hear famous bands go, they never get any money, and I'm like, well, they also it's going to be their record deals as well,
Yeah.
might be bad. But yeah, a bit of streaming. I mean, I just think it's all come back, and people have their own way of playing music, haven't they? And format that they like, and it doesn't really matter. It's just people. It's just great that people buy music and are into it, and, and live. It seems popular. There's more too many bands playing live, probably.
Yeah.
So it's good. I think it's actually a good time at the moment. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, Reflecting on your career, is there an album or track you feel especially proud of for the best represents your journey as an artist?
Ah, one song.
Song,
I've always,
album, whatever, yeah, whatever works for
yeah,
you. I'm
albums.
not trying
Well, I
to
sort of
generalize, but yeah.
I mean, obviously, I've changed my mind all the time. I forget what some of them are like, and then I hear them and go, "Oh wow, I love that one,"
Yeah.
but I haven't heard it for 10 years or something. I always liked, and I'll stick by it. But I always liked off the second album, "Smiling at the Hippogonda Club." There's the last track's called "Fate is Smiling,"
Yeah.
and it was kind of like a mission statement at the time, and I still like that. I still It's particularly for the lyrics, I think. So I'll stick with that from 1985. That is, and yeah, I like that a lot.
Yeah.
I'll go with that. I could choose another one next, tomorrow, but you know how it is.
Right. With your experience, do you have any advice for musicians looking to create a long-lasting career, especially in like, niche genres?
Yeah, just don't pay attention to anyone and do your own thing, and just be stubborn. Just do it and
Be
keep
experimental.
doing
Yeah,
it.
I get it. Yeah.
And yeah, listen to people, but don't listen to people.
Yeah.
It's you have to have a self-belief. I think you have to do that.
Yeah.
And because you do get some awful people slagging you off, and maybe reviews, or just, I mean, I actually haven't had that much. I've had a couple, but then I just throw them. I don't keep them. But I haven't, in considering all the reviews I've had, it's normally really good, but you have to just do it,
Yeah.
and don't listen to people telling you to do this to be popular. Just do it because you need to do it.
Hmm.
Do, and whatever that is, and then try things, and it doesn't work, and then then one of the big things is actually just getting known for what you do and getting contacts, and I'm quite good at that. I think doing the fanzine was a good
Yeah.
start, and I've always networked, and you have to do that as well. And some people aren't very good at that. They might do great music, but uh, it's important that they maybe have to get some help if you're not very good at it. But you need to get it out there, and some artists sort of just hide away. That's wrong as well, because you've got a duty to let people hear what you've done, I think.
Right.
Because if your favorite band had hidden away,
Yeah.
then your life would be worse off for it, wouldn't it? So
Right. I mean, it's
yeah, just do it.
like started the podcast where I think it's more of a modern day sort of zine thing where
Yeah,
my
yeah,
way of kind of networking with a lot of musicians and kind of being like, spreading the word on them as well.
yeah. That's good. Yeah, it is. It is like it's a fanzine, isn't it? Really different way of doing it. Well, yeah, between that and a radio show, I suppose.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's good. I mean, and all these things help. It's brilliant. I love it. It's like a community, really, isn't it?
Trying to keep it alive. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Cool.
If you could go back to the beginning of Attrition, would you do anything differently?
No,
No.
no, there's no point. There's no point. A, you can't,
Right.
and B, once you do that, it's a dangerous road to go down, isn't it?
Or
If
nitpicking at
I would
everything.
be born here, I'd be born in another, and it just goes on and on. So don't do it. No, I won't. I won't even think about that.
That's good.
And I just accept. I think you have to accept what you've done as well, and
I agree.
you know.
No, and it's the building blocks, it's the steps, it's everything.
Yeah, it's the mistakes. You need to make mistakes to get better, don't you?
Yes, I agree.
Uh,
Agree
yeah.
100%. What's on the horizon for Attrition? Are there any new projects, tours, or collaborations you got going in the work that you want to promote to everybody?
Yeah, well, I say I've got this new sort of art sort of soundtrack project I'm working on. I haven't done enough of that to be able to give you much
No, that's
information.
okay. No, it's good to.
And I'm going to get new songs going. We've got a couple of UK shows this coming month, and then a little bit of a break, and then we'll have more. And we're looking, well, we should be in the States next year, so I've got to get the details of that sorted.
Yeah.
It'd be more like September towards the end of the year. It looks like we're going to have our first gig in Bangkok in May.
Ooh,
And I've
wow,
never been to Thailand, so I'm going to have a holiday out of that.
that's great.
So that's amazing. Yeah, it's just again, I was only hearing about that yesterday, so it's all but it looks pretty good.
That's
So
awesome. Yeah,
I'm happy about that.
yeah,
I mean, I'm always talking to everyone, and then
right.
some of these things take 3 years before they
Oh,
happen, and then so yeah, there's just lots going on. It's great, actually.
right.
I'm really happy about that.
I'm glad to hear that. No, that's awesome. And yeah, and you'll be
Yeah.
coming to the States with the Cold Wave Festival. Is that
Yeah, I'm
2005?
hoping that will happen this year. Yeah, not this year, next. Yeah,
Next year. Yeah, yeah,
2025. Yeah.
yeah. Awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to that. Well, is
Yeah.
there anything else you want to add before I let you go?
I don't know if you want to give anyone our websites
Yeah,
or
I'll post it.
yeah, it's better to have that written down, really, isn't it? I
Yeah, I'll put it
mean,
in the description. But yeah, if anybody you guys are on social media, Facebook, Instagram, I think added you to Blue Sky. I'm still getting used to
yeah,
that.
I've just done
Different
that. Yeah,
feature.
I've done that this week. Yeah, look, hopefully it'll be good because it's everyone's joining it, but what happens next, we'll see.
Yeah.
But it doesn't do any harm.
Yeah. No.
So
And then attrition.co.uk.
that's the
And then your
main one.
Bandcamp. Yeah, I'll add all that to the
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks.
yeah, yeah, no problem. Well, thank you so much for being on, man. I really appreciate it.
I really enjoyed it.
Yep.
Just realised how dark my room is here.
No, because it's like, the time difference. I was trying to get some like lighting in here and it was very gloomy. Like it's been gloomy all weekend.
Oh yeah,
I
it
was
has a
like,
bit
okay, let me
here.
open the curtains. And then all of a sudden the sun decides to just start
Yeah,
beaming.
I'm not used
I
to
was like,
it.
where did
Yeah,
that
yeah.
come from? Yeah. So that's okay.
No, it's good. No, I've enjoyed it.
Yeah, thank you
All
so
right.
much for being on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Till next time.
Yep.
Yeah.
See